if everything in my life I'm approaching from, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And that goes across the board. That goes work, that goes relationships, that goes dating, that goes nutritional choices, that goes family obligations, dinners, exercise, the whole thing.
That's Jennifer Weg, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast. Hey guys, I'm your host, Cara Duffy, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast, where I invite my favorite humans, the awesome, the up to something, and the extraordinary to come and share their story. I hope that you'll be left entertained, inspired, and moved to take action towards living your most powerful life. Jen Weg manages global creative marketing for film at Netflix and is the founder of Soapbox, an organization committed to empowering, protecting, and promoting women in the entertainment, creative advertising, and marketing industries. On this episode, Jen shares her story of building a career in the entertainment world, what pushed her to create Soapbox, and the impact it's had in LA in a post-Me Too movement world. All that and so much more coming up, but first. This episode is brought to you by Income School and their Project 24. Project 24 is the course load that Income School put together to teach you how to monetize your website to replace your income in 2 years or less. This is a huge opportunity for all of you looking for your side hustles, to figure out how to monetize your passion projects and the things that you care about. This is the online course to take. They give you so many different lessons. They even include a 60-step checklist to take you from zero to replacing your income. Everything from how to write blog articles that are effective for SEO search, how to create your first YouTube videos and how to link them back to really build a community that we're all talking and connecting with, and also when's the right time to add in affiliate links and to monetize all these different assets that you have. We're doing it at Powerful Ladies because we got to make money, right, to support all the amazing content that we're creating for you guys. And this program has been a game changer for us. I would love to hear what you guys think. Take the course, figure out how we can build amazing platforms together. If you go to powerfulladies.com, you'll see a button for Income School on our website, so you can find it there, or you can go directly to incomeschool.com/3256/P24 for Project 24. Thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm really glad you're here. And I'm also really excited because you are one of the women that I have been introduced to through people I really respect that I've worked with. And actually, you were a recommendation from a powerful man that I've worked with.
Love.
And I love that there are so many men in my life who I'm including in all of my sharing about Powerful Ladies, which at first I was like, maybe I don't need to include them. And I'm like, nope, everyone's getting this message. And there's been a lot more men than women that have actually recommended
Connected the dots.
And have been repeat connectors. Mm-hmm. My friend Ian has now connected me to, I think, 4 awesome women.
That's incredible.
And he just keeps coming up with more. And I'm like,
keep them coming.
Yes. I'm like, you're going to be like the new member of the team soon because you're just doing all of my own PR for me.
I know it is. It's something that, I think in our strive to make change, mm-hmm. we are so often we lean towards being exclusive.
Yeah.
And, only leaning on each other, which has a time and a place, but it's very important and necessary to open our arms to our fellow man, and fellow advocate, mm-hmm. and embrace them and educate them and, and celebrate them.
Yeah.
The ones like you were saying that, can recognize greatness, mm-hmm. And strength and femininity and be able to connect the dots. It's definitely something to celebrate for sure.
100%. And before we go any further, I'm going to let you introduce yourself so people know who they're listening to.
Oh my goodness. My name is Jennifer Weg. Most people call me Jen Weg. In that way, Jen Weg. And I'm 31 years old. I am from the Valley, from Encino, born and raised. And I went back east for college and then to Cornell and then pretty much right after moved back home. I could not handle the freezing cold. And, I graduated college in the wonderful year of 2009, which was the worst time to try and find a job or a career. And I was not one of these people that was gifted with, a path and a purpose from coming out of the womb. Like many of the men in my family who are attorneys, that's always been their path, and they're incredible at it. But it took me a little bit to figure out my place and my passions. And I always loved literature, and I studied that in college. And then, I moved home, and it was rough to try and find a job, and to have sort of been so goal oriented and success oriented and sort of milestone oriented my whole life. I was taught, and I still believe to a certain extent, but you work hard enough and you will yield the sort of some version of a desired result. And this just wasn't working. And so I was interviewing at a bunch of places, both entertainment and arts and tech startup.
What was your degree in?
Literature,
Right.
English and Spanish. I double majored in English and Spanish. And, by sort of luck of the draw and, a family friend who was a headhunter, I ended up getting a job after about 6 to 7 months of looking, pretty aggressively at a tech startup that, specialized in advertising analytics. So it was sort of market research in brand advertising. So, and specifically TV commercials. So I was doing that as sort of their kind of catch-all marketing associate for about 2.5 years. And during that time, I, was young, in my early 20s, living in Brentwood, spending a lot of time with friends from home and also friends from college who had moved to LA to, get into the agency life or work at the studio. And, I've always been a huge movie buff, and, I've always been the first person to see something, and I've always, been that person to go to the midnight showing, and I'm obsessed with pop culture, admittedly. And, I had this serious FOMO during that time when I was happy to have a job and happy to, be working and learning something that was new. But, anytime I would go to dinner or go out with my girlfriends or my friends that were in the entertainment space, I was like, oh, I want to be part of that. So I should also say, during the time of the 2.5 years that I had the job at Ace Metrics, which is still around and they're a great company, I was living in Brentwood, and then I ended up moving home because I had, as we often do in our early 20s, a dramatic roommate situation. And during the time when I moved home, up until the time, that I ended up switching careers, I also did yoga teacher training. I found that, I had gotten to a place, because my first job out of college I was super grateful and lucky to have a job, but it was a job. It wasn't a passion.
Yep.
And I, as much pride as I take in my work, there was a point at which I was on autopilot in a way, and I wasn't learning very much or interested in learning very much anymore. And I was living at home and saving money. So I decided to do teacher training because I had found yoga as sort of a part of a way of therapy in recovering from this traumatic roommate experience. And I found this community at this studio in Sherman Oaks, Core Power. They're a big, corporation nationwide. And I just was hanging out there all the time and making friends and building community. And, one of my favorite yoga teachers of all time, Jamelia, if you end up listening, I love you. She's incredible. She approached me and said, have you ever thought about teacher training? And I thought she was kidding. I was, because I am to this day not one of those yogis that can like pop into a handstand, no problem. Or, I don't hit every pose. I stumble all the time. I fall out of dancers. I'm not perfect. And, she really talked me out of that. And she's like, that's exactly why you should do it. And many people do it for many different reasons. Some people do it, for vocational purposes to help enhance their confidence with their acting or singing or stand-up careers or writing, just to get the creative juices flowing. Some people do it obviously for the purpose of teaching yoga. So I did it, and I ended up teaching at Core Power for, the next few years on and off. During the same time when I finished my teacher training, as the universe often throws when it rains, it pours, when it went both good and bad. And this was, a period of serious transition in my life because I had, as I said, really been drawn towards the entertainment space. And I started just asking the questions of, who do you know? What can I do? How do you feel? Because I didn't want to put the last 2.5 years that I spent in advertising analytics, I didn't want that to be for absolutely nothing. So I was trying to figure out spaces and ways to build on that and utilize that in the entertainment landscape. So I, through meetings and, with family friends and their friends and just sort of the connective tissue that is, entertainment, and certainly entertainment in LA. And I should also say Jews in entertainment in LA. I was put in touch with a friend who was working in publicity at Paramount at the time, and she put my resume in touch with HR, and they reached out, and I ended up getting a job as an assistant in creative advertising. And for those of you that don't know, because admittedly, when I accepted the job, I didn't really understand what that meant. That essentially, creative advertising represents all of the marketing material you see that's telling you what a film or a TV show or a podcast or a series is about. So, when you hear more often than not regarding trailers specifically, it's like, either you hear one of two things, the trailer showed me the whole movie, or the trailer was so different. And then you go to buy the ticket, and then you're like, oh, that trailer sold me a bill of goods, and I'm,
Yep.
It's so different than what I expected. For those of us that are in my business, that's the best thing, because that means we did our job. We love hearing that. So, and that, that goes for trailers, anything sort of audio, visual, TV spots, anything online, digital, paid promotions,
everything,
billboards on Sunset, the whole thing. So that was 2012. And I started as an assistant, and then, throughout the next course of 3 years, soaked up all my knowledge that I possibly could. I had a great first boss who is still over there and incredible, and, a mentor of mine. And he was patient and instructive and, and kind in teaching me as much as he could. And, as it happens, I ended up, getting promoted off his desk, and then was put on a team. And, it just wasn't as positive as an experience for me. And I'm sure there's fault on both sides, and I have many, hindsight being 2020. I think there were a lot of things that were working against all of us. But so I ended up, sort of putting the energy out there and talking to a few friends at other places. And one of those friends who used to be at Paramount left to be the head of creative advertising at a small studio called Open Road. And then she hired me, and so I left and got a pretty, big promotion in terms of title, and certainly in terms of, raise, and was at Open Road for the next 2-ish years, during which time, they released great hits like Nightcrawler, Mother's Day, but most, sort of notably Spotlight. And, working on the, both theatrical release and awards campaign for Spotlight, and having it inevitably win, the the Oscar for Best Picture was just like a feather in my career cap that I'll be able to, sort of take with me always, and taught me so much. And, I really, that time at Open Road, it was like, I regard it as boot camp, and, in the best way in terms of my actually learning and doing the job. Because on the studio side, if you're unfamiliar, you can get stuck, certainly at the bigger studios, between the coordinator, manager, director. You're sort of the worker bee, but not the decision bee.
Yeah.
And, at Open Road, just because of the nature of the company being so small, and we were working on so many different movies at any given time, I was able to be both, to do the work and to make the decisions. Obviously with a collective team. But the access that I had to, not only the filmmakers and the creative team on that side, but also, the other departments within the company, whether it was production or public relations or post-production or, distribution, theatrical, it was a crash course in movie making. And, it was an incredible and one of those times in my life that I will always love. But at the same time, I also was working. Those 2 years, I worked 18-hour days for
2 years.
2 years. But I was so excited to do the work. And so, the stressful moments, I would call my mom, on my way home, and she would say, I know that you're tired and I know that you're stressed, but think of where you were 6 months ago when you had the opposite problem, where, you had all this red tape and all these guardrails, and your job was very small. And even the job that you had, you felt like you couldn't do because you weren't set up for success.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it was the exact opposite. It sort of was all at my fingertips at all times, and being sort of the type A success-oriented person that I was, that can be stressful. And then, after Spotlight won, and then we worked on, I worked on Mother's Day, which was Gary Marshall of, Pretty Woman and, Valentine's Day and New Year's Eve and all of those movies. And obviously A League of Their Own, the best ever. It was his last film, and Netflix reached out, and they recruited me to come work on documentary marketing, both film and series. And, coming from a small studio that I was at, which was, 50 people on a good day, to what Netflix was 3 years ago, felt like going from, a little village to the Starship Enterprise. It felt so massive, and, sort of new technology and new ways of thinking, and their culture is this sort of techie intersection of tech and entertainment. And, it felt massive. And it was, and, I went to dove right into working on our documentary film and series releases. I worked on, things ranging from the first season of Last Chance U, which is an amazing series.
I love that one.
Oh, so good. The football, it's about a football program for the community college in Louisiana, I believe.
I think so.
I can't even.
On my list for women I want on this podcast is the guidance counselor.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I
love her.
She's just such a G. I just love her.
Yeah.
And so inspiring. And then I worked on, a very sort of controversial but emotional documentary called Audrey and Daisy about teen suicide and bullying. And then most notably, I worked on Ava DuVernay's documentary 13th about the prison reform and the criminal system in this country, and how just quite frankly messed up it is.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to have worked on that and to gotten the education from her directly that I got, and certainly from just watching the film, because it informs how I think certainly of what's going on in this country today. And just it approaches criminalization and just how we think and our instincts so beautifully. And it's if you haven't watched it, I 10 out of 10 recommend. It was incredible. And so I worked on that. And then because of my experience working on 13th and certainly my experience from working on Spotlight, I then transitioned to working on all of our awards campaigns, ranging from film to series to documentaries. And I did that for about a year. That Emmy season in the spring, which was, Stranger Things season 1 and The Crown season 1. And then Black Mirror ended up winning and doing really well that Emmys in September for San Junipero, which is an incredible episode if you haven't watched it.
I've had to stop watching Black Mirror because I can't sleep.
It's too dark. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard. The Bandersnatch episode, which, I watched and loved, but like at a certain point, I just was going round and round in circles, and I had to turn it off.
No, I can't. I love the idea. I love the mixing of dimorphism and futurism, like all this stuff together. Yeah. And like the bee episode. I don't know the real name. Sorry. It's where they use the artificial bees that were for pollination. Oh, yes. They control them to do bad things.
Yeah. No, that's like playing into
it's right now
a popular fear. Yeah. And also it's real life.
Yeah. And like it's not science fiction.
No.
Which I think is what
But I think that's what the showrunners love. Like that they sort of predicted and manifested so much of this darkness, and they foresaw it. Is really powerful, and I think why so many people love the show.
Because it's worse than I think the equivalent for my father's generation would have been
the Twilight
Zone. But I think that, and it might just be generational. Like I watch the Twilight Zone, and I'm like, some of them are
silly.
creepy, but they're so unrealistic.
I know.
Black Mirror, I watch and I have panic attacks and I can't sleep.
I hope the next generation feels the same way about Black Mirror, because that would be really great.
Well, then it means
we just
that
go hard left for now and just leave all this craziness behind. That would be great.
I agree, because then it's like, oh, what a funny idea.
Yeah, what a funny period in time.
Yeah. Who thought humans were this manipulative? I don't know.
Yeah. Dark days. I was on our awards team, and then, worked on the campaigning for Mudbound and Icarus, and, some of the other, obviously, documentaries and some of our foreign films that got nominated that year. And Icarus also, was a incredible documentary about Russian doping. And
it's one of my favorites.
It's so insane. Mm-hmm. The fact that, you start one place, and he, even Brian, the filmmaker, never thought that's where, it was very cat and mouse. He started on his own sort of very individual journey of just trying to, sort of win this race. And
he's a cyclist.
Yes, cyclist. And little did he know that he would be exposing and bringing down, an empire, essentially. And he's, he and certainly Gregor, the scientist that helped him, is still, I think, on Putin's like top 5 kill list. Like he's throwing darts at his face.
Yes, it's such the documentary is so good because it talks so much about sports doping and the anti-doping laws, and it brings in all modern sports and Olympics. And you can see in his face when he starts to unveil things that are bigger. Yeah. Like it changes, because in the beginning he's like, oh, this is just a funny,
it's just something I'm doing to my body. And I'm like, oh,
I'm going to be a personal experiment about doping.
Yeah.
And see if it really makes a difference in what happens. Because I'm not a professional.
Like a litmus test.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And then when it turns, like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ruin it because I want people to see it.
Right. I love, whether it's a documentary or, any sort of series or film, I love content like that where you start one place and then it just goes somewhere. You're like, what? So I did that for about a year, and then our films initiative over the last 5 years, certainly since our first, which was, Beasts of No Nation, has gone through many different iterations, but certainly in the last 2.5 years, I would say, it's taken significant shape, with the successes of certainly started, with Mudbound in the Academy space, and then certainly Roma, and then you have Bird Box, and you have these, and then even Bright,
Yep.
with Will Smith and Joel Edgerton, like you have these things, and because of the power of Netflix and that it is a global service and it's available to everyone everywhere versus some theatrical releases, even things like Avengers are sometimes windowed, in the US. It's not always the release is not always the same as in Germany or in Japan or, what have you. And really does curate and globalize a conversation. If something like a Bird Box really takes off, you just know, like you just feel it. And so, I've been working on, our films for the last year and some, and it's given, where I was before Netflix, it feels like being back at home. And it's my career is in a nice symmetrical place right now, but with obviously, I still have goals and a 5-year plan in mind, but also trying not to be so married to it so that I can like ebb and flow as things come up and exciting things that I wouldn't have expected. Like this.
We had, I had a woman talking about how in January, she's like, I don't want to make new resolutions.
Yeah.
My life last year was awesome. I just want it to stay the same.
That's incredible. Oh man, I love that. I love that. That's, I find resolutions to be a great exercise just to sort of take stock of like, what do I want to bring with me, similar to your friend of, what from last year worked and what am I sort of ready to just kick down the hill.
Yeah.
But, I try to do that more than once a year of like the taking stock and the, sort of evaluating and picking the good things and leaving the bad, keeping the good things and leaving the bad.
I do too. And sometimes I wonder if I do it too frequently. Like if I'm not giving myself enough time to produce results before I start being like, this worked, this didn't work, change this. Like I have to remember to calm down, especially with Powerful Ladies and how much it's changing and how young it still is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's officially 4 years old, but all of these new parts are not. Like they're public to the world since March 1st.
That's amazing.
And I was talking to a friend of mine. I'm like, this is failing and this is failing. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like
nothing.
It's been a matter of like 60 days.
Yeah.
Like just stop it.
Infancy. And then sort of the biggest passion project or one of the bigger passion projects, similar to, how I fell into yoga, when I was at Paramount after I, left, the desk of, after I stopped being an assistant, and I was sort of in that strange place. During the time of my being an assistant, I had created this incredible close group of girlfriends who are still like my girl gang to this day. Some of them, one of them works at Netflix with me. I brought her over. And then, some of us are at Sony, some of us are at Disney, some of us are on the agency side. And, we are thick as thieves. And I, as these friendships started to form, right away, pretty much when I started at Paramount, it startled me a little because it was so authentic and so easy and organic and just loving, and genuine, and it gave me pause, quite frankly. And when I stopped and thought about it, I looked at my parents, who are still together and just the greatest people you'll ever meet, and their closest friends as couples, but mostly, are people that they met through either work or school, sending my brother and me to school.
Yep.
So, it made sense to me all of a sudden that, like, of course, the women that I'm finding these close relationships with are women that I'm meeting through work, because that's just, it immediately bonds you.
Yeah.
And certainly in the small field of entertainment and marketing, which gets even smaller, when I meet somebody just on the street or at Whole Foods or whatever that is in my world, I immediately am like, oh, like I almost like I want to hug them and exhale at the same time, where I'm just like, I'm relieved and I want to love you and I want to hug you and I want to talk to you and I want to know everything, because you get it. Exactly. Yeah. So, I just was, leaning on these women so much during that strange time. And I wanted more of it. And I also wanted to like mass produce it in a way, because I felt like I had tapped into this secret well of, female companionship. And I just wanted to share it with everybody and shout it from the rooftops, like, this is a thing. So, I sent an email to every woman in the business I knew at the time, which was, I don't know, 20 women. Yeah. And many of them are women that I had only worked with, via email, or I'd only talked to on the phone, because I was the lower tier on the totem pole as far as decision making. It wasn't I wasn't the one that they, and I get it. It wasn't, I didn't take it personally, but like, they weren't reaching out to me to go to dinner or, to have them over to talk creative. I wasn't the decision maker. So, I was the worker bee. So many of these women I had been, on phone calls with and conference calls and been emailing back and forth, but I had never met face to face. And I sent this note to every email address of a woman that I had. And I just sort of poured my heart out. And I said, this is what I'm feeling. I'm sensing a void in this community, and I need it. I need it, and I need you. And I've been lucky enough to create and foster these amazing friendships with these women in my field. And I want to mass produce it, basically. I want to create a space where we all can celebrate each other. We can, grow with each other. We can lament together. It was never a, damn the man, let's get around and make voodoo dolls and just complain. It was always like, let's talk about a hard conversation or a hard situation you had today, because maybe I went through the same thing a week ago, and maybe I don't have a solution, but I can tell you how I handled it and where I'm at now. Yep. And, this was in 2013, 2014, pre-Me Too, sort of everyone waking up to what it is to be a working woman in this day and age, and in all, in the modern world. And I said, let's all go to this place, this bar, this night, and see what shows up. See what and who and how shows up. And I immediately got a response back from almost every single woman on the email chain that said, yes, how can I help? And here are 7 names of women that I know would want to come as well. So I just planned our first event, and it was pretty much as casual as like, I, called a bar and said, can I bring, 35 women, which is what I thought around it would be. And it was just sort of meet and greet, drinks, cheese plate here and there. And it was in November, and, I think we had like 45 women show up. And Amazing. I'll never forget, it was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So it was a time when like people don't have time. They're either on their way out, on their way in, on their way to cook, on their way to whatever. And I was just astounded and baffled that people showed up. And it was then that, I sort of realized, I was like, okay, this is something. And I created Soapbox, which is, our coven name, I guess is what we call it. And our website is soapboxla.com if you want to check us out. And it's essentially a network, an organization for women in entertainment or content marketing, because we've now sort of grown and are iterating constantly as women need a place need a place. And it's so great to see things like The Wing and, all these sort of female driven minded, organizations pop up, because clearly there's a void and there's a need for it. And, it's taken so much shape over the last 5 years, but it's certainly, started to feel more real and more necessary after, the New York Times article and the New Yorker article about Harvey Weinstein, because so many women who are very active and have helped me, shepherd Soapbox as we grow and grow and grow. We now have, over, I think it's 700 members on the email distribution. Obviously not everyone comes every time we have an event, but, I think for about 2 years, our average attendee number was, I would say anywhere between 50 and 70, depending on the summer, depending on winter, depending on rain, whatever.
Yep.
And now, the last 3 or 4 events, we've had consistently over 100 people, which is just blows my mind.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's there's the business side of it that's we're trying to figure out how we become a nonprofit and how we fundraise, because there's so many just what feel like barriers, contradictory laws and barriers and sort of and parameters that you have to work in. It's you can't, fundraise if you're not an approved nonprofit, but if you're not an approved nonprofit, that costs money to file those, as I'm sure you know.
Well, so, this is great because
I would love your help. If
I started a nonprofit.
Amazing.
Just to help people do that. We are literally
I had no idea.
An umbrella group that we partner. You're under us. We're the 501c. We collect your first fundraising, but we just manage the money and the coverage.
Need to talk about this.
And then we prepare you so you can launch on your own.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Because I had the same experience. I was sitting there.
It's so frustrating. And it's not that, I wouldn't want to invest, because for those of you that are trying to do this, at minimum for the filing and the lawyer's fees, it's $5,000. Ish.
And we can teach you how to get it for way less too.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
If you saw my eyes, they are bugging out of my head. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. Soapbox ladies, we have a solution. I'm so excited. This is amazing.
But why is it so hard to do good?
It's crazy.
And
why is it so hard to do good?
I know it's because they believe that most people are going to try and scam the system, which is so unfortunate, because
I just don't want to get sued. Right. God forbid someone trips and falls somewhere.
Right.
Or the thing that is so incredible about the space and the community we've built is, as I was saying, it definitely became more just substantial in our, certainly the people that show up, but in what we need, what we are, and what we are to people and to our members after Harvey. And, it was then that it got serious in a good way, in okay, we need to galvanize, we need to, channel this energy somehow, some way, somewhere. So, and it was just by circumstance and serendipity, essentially, that we had a Soapbox event. The New York Times was Friday, the New Yorker was Tuesday, and we had a Soapbox that Wednesday. So it just happened that way. So, and it was also, it was hosted by one of our creative agencies who the space, they must have sensed that we needed it, because we all needed to sit down. But the space was, sometimes it's standing only, and it's you kind of, it's like you're at a bar, but then this space was all couches and a lot of sitting and plush, and just, and the lighting was low, and just, we had this sort of cathartic circle of just telling our stories, and whether they were directly related with Harvey, because many of the women came from Miramax and Weinstein in New York, or have worked with him on the agency side and know how intense He was, and obviously inappropriate in a lot of ways. So it was giving them a space and an audience to react.
Yeah.
Very raw and
A safe space.
And for us, because I think so often with a lot of the hard things we've gone through, we're not always looking for advice.
Yep.
Sometimes we're just looking for acknowledgement.
Yep.
That's all. Just I'm really sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
Not like, well, you have to do this and you have to go to this person, you have to go to HR and you have to write about this or you have to something. It's like, okay, I just want to be able to hold space with my emotions and feel and just have someone say, I'm sorry. Or like, I hear you. I see you. That's terrible. And so that was really what that soapbox was. And that was a turning point, I think. And
it must have been so emotional. Because I know that, being in the industry and having that happen over that weekend and it be the buzz that is consumed
shocked
by
the world.
Yes. And especially LA, right? It was so consuming, and to have your event pre-planned and to have people show up, and it's always a moment of joy for you guys. It's fun. You're going to get you get energized and go, and then to have it show up and it be what was it? Very emotional? Was it energizing? What do you think women got out of that night?
I think it was because that was just the beginning in a lot of ways. And I think we all knew that. And we all talked about that night of heads are going to roll as they should. And I do think it was cathartic and more energizing than anything else.
Yep.
And it was also really just inspiring. A few of the women shared some of their abuse experiences and how they survived. And one of the women was, a runner, basically below an assistant at an agency, and was getting pretty terribly, verbally and emotionally abused. And she had a new job by Monday. Because of Soapbox, because so many women rallied around her because she didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
She just moved here from out of state and she needed income, and, she felt trapped and just she had to grin and bear it. And she shared her story and was very authentic. And, the crowd of support that sort of swarmed on her after was, we're going to fix this.
Yeah.
We're not going to fix the abusive situation. And, that person may not come to justice just yet, but you give notice tomorrow and we will figure this out.
Yeah.
And she had a new job by Monday and she's still there.
That's amazing.
So that's that stuff where you're okay, this is necessary.
Well, it's bigger than you, than the original idea, than the individual people.
Totally. It's so much bigger. And, when up to now, when we have events and we've, again, as that was sort of the starting point for the next phase of Soapbox, we now, have panels, we have curated conversation, we, that speak to all the different types of women in our membership and just what it is to be a woman in this business. And, it every time we have an event, which is, every 3 months-ish. But people always come up to me and say oh my God, thank you for this. I'm honestly, at this point, I don't do very much. And it's sure. Okay. I'll take some ownership of the fact that it was my idea, but it's so big, it's so much bigger than me. And the fact that, we are the success that we are is attributed to, I would say, maybe 5% me and 95% the effort of all the women in it that show up every time. And certainly the women that have helped me, figure out what we are and how we are and who we are. So that's, become so much more of a passion project and just is so important to me and just lives inside my heart at all times, because there are things, and I'm guilty of it too, that I do every single day that I'm like, this is conditioning.
Yeah.
Just the things I say in meetings to other women, to other men, the things I think about myself and how I talk myself out of, certain things I feel that I deserve, both in the work space and just in my private life, and whether it's making good choices for my health, or making good choices, in relationships and in my love life, or with my family, or with my friend. It's we are conditioned to grinning and bearing it in a way, and being perfect at all times.
Yeah.
And anything less than is unacceptable. And, I'm trying to not be so hard on myself and understand that it's conditioning, but also at the same time, I need to, make conscious decisions about, the things I say, things I do. And, I'm trying to practice what I preach in a way. 'Cause it's hard. It's hard. But at the same time, it's an incredible time in our history to talk about stuff like this, because it's never been there's never been such a available vocabulary to talk about this, both with other women, but also with our fellow man, like we were talking about a little bit ago, of really reaching across the table and saying, it's not okay for you to comment on the fact that I'm wearing eyeliner and heels today. And, I understand that it was made in jest, but you have to understand that sexualizes me and puts me in a place that's less than. It's not okay for you to mansplain. It's not okay for you to repeat the exact thing I just said 5 minutes ago and own it as your own idea. It's not okay for you to interrupt me. And, it's hard to not, to find those moments and have them be effective, because depending on your audience, they will recoil and say you're emotional and say that you're just being a bitch. And that's fine. But you have to speak your piece. And it's those teaching moments that I think are more, available to us now than they ever have been. And certainly at places like Netflix, the sort of brilliant jerk persona is just not accepted in any way. So we are always giving each other feedback, both with the work and with how we do the work. And, I'm super, super grateful to be at a place and a company that promotes and insists on human decency and the culture of feedback of, you said it this way, because it's more often than not, both men and women, you say things and you want to assume good intent from the people that, you're around, and you want them to assume your good intent.
Yeah.
But sometimes the things you say come off wrong or just don't land the way that you want them to. And, I want people to call me out on that, because I don't ever want to make somebody feel less than or marginalized or more marginalized. I want everybody to feel happy all the time and they have, they feel acknowledged and seen and heard and respected. Are
you familiar with the book Radical Candor?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in our culture as well. We have a public culture deck that Radical Candor is again something, a tenant, and something that you are expected to exercise and employ every day.
For everyone listening that isn't familiar with Radical Candor, it's an amazing book. It's already on the Powerful Ladies website. But basically, the philosophy is that you need to create trusting relationships where anyone can give feedback.
Yes.
to anyone and also share any ideas. Yes. And it starts with leadership telling their staff and their team that they can judge them and give them feedback as well. So judge is probably the wrong word, but feedback and critique. Yeah. And you as the leader creating the space to enable that to happen.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's a stigma, and we talk about this at Netflix quite a bit, of like, feedback equals, critical and sometimes negative reaction.
It's bad.
It's bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. There's a stigma that feedback is bad. And, it's like, I say it all the time. I said it last night of like, can I talk to you? Or, I have to talk to you. It's like, those are the most like hated phrases in the English language. It's like, I'm just automatically assuming that I'm the worst person ever. Whereas, the practice of giving and receiving feedback is just so constant, that we really try to make it both positive and constructive. It should never come from a personal place. It's like, my feedback is that you don't look good in blue. Like, that's not it. Yeah. It's always, you really handled yourself well in that meeting. Mm-hmm. So, to continue to do things like that. Or, maybe the next time you present in a big room, try practicing before, because you skipped over your words a few times. Yeah. Things like that. That it's the intention is for it to help you grow and help you improve.
It's coaching.
Totally. Mm-hmm. And no one is ever fully formed in this life. And we are all often encouraged to give feedback to our leaders as well, which is awesome. So it really is very singular in that Netflix lives within this place of tech, entertainment, and like human betterment in this way. Because it's hard. It's really hard to go from a place very corporate, or any place that's not Netflix, and come in and you're sort of, it's this strange combination of feeling exposed, but also protected in a way, of where you are assuming good intent and assume that those giving you feedback, whether it's positive or constructive, want to help you grow. Mm-hmm. So, but you are also opening yourself up all of the time to feedback. So you're constantly exposed, but in a way that makes you better. I can't think of an analogy, but I think it's like a flower exposed to the sunlight. You bloom. Yeah, but and a lot of the companies that are defining today, Google, Pixar, Netflix, the big names that we all know that they can't move forward and can't keep up in the competitive environment if they don't create a safe space for people to take risks and have ideas. Yep. And whether it's a risky, technical direction, or if it's a risky, new show or movie, like if you're not willing to be vulnerable and try it, someone else is going to, and that's how they're going to beat you. 100%. And that's one of those things like that I was referencing of, I'm just as guilty of sort of talking myself down in a way, because I have these ideas like Soapbox, like, my most recent one, nobody steal it, but I really want to go to Life Alert and tell them that they need to make and start marketing to single women who are young and live alone, because I worry about slipping in the shower too. It's the Sex and the City episode. Yes, where she falls. And it's also most recently, she's not alone, but in Wine Country, Rachel Dratch's character throws her back out overnight and she has to sleep in their bathroom. Like, come on. Falling is not, age exclusive. No. But anyway, I want to like do it with like a fun twist somehow, whether it's with like a, cannabis company or, through like Glam Squad or Dry Bar or something. It's like, get a blowout and a Life Alert. But I'm now imagining going to your next event and everyone in the audience. Oh my God, that would be my dream. Because I have a dog who is the light of my life, but what's she going to do if I fall in the bath? You haven't trained her to like Lassie yet. Oh my God. That's not, I wish. So I don't come from the entertainment world at all, right? My whole background is
products and apparel and footwear in the sports world.
But
And so I've had quite a few women on, and we've
just
talked
as equally
about,
masculine, if not even more so.
it is, but I don't know. Everyone I've talked to and my personal experiences have been, a lot of it's very equal. And I don't know if a lot of that comes from, women in sports isn't a new concept.
Sure.
And, when you're working in a sports world, like, it's all about the performance and like who can do it.
Yeah.
And I've been really lucky where the sexism that I've experienced or the harassment or any of that, like, it's 3 situations that were so minor and not a big deal. And every time it happened, like, other men stepped in to like be like, no.
Wow.
And so I feel really lucky. And
That's
a lot of the
amazing.
women that have been in my industry have kind of said the same thing. Like, they're equally as surprised as men who had no idea when the Harvey Weinstein thing came out, like how prevalent it was in the entertainment world. And so, like, I'm just curious, like, how bad was it? Like, was it super common? Like, everyone has a story and like everyone had a situation. Like, I guess for me, it's like, I can't tell, being far removed, like, how bad was it? And is it now?
I mean, I wouldn't go so far. I should say, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But from what I can tell, I wouldn't say that everyone has a story, but I would say every third person has a story. Mm-hmm. Every third woman has a story. And it's also, the way that I have internalized the Me Too movement and everything that we are talking about, it's not necessarily just abuse against women. It's abuse in general.
Yep.
And I certainly, when we open it up to abuse in general, that's everybody, honestly. Mm-hmm. Because at every one of these big companies, it's the culture of, hazing in the way of like, well, it was done to me. So, I'm going to, call you at all hours, and I'm going to, yell at you and throw phones at you. And I'm going to have you do insane errands for me.
Yeah. Very Devil Wears Prada.
100%.
Yeah.
And, that's not, they don't write, unless that is written in your job description and you sign on the dotted line saying, cool, I'm good with this. It's abuse. It's emotional abuse. It's an abuse of power. And, it's this toxic notion that in order to move forward, you have to suffer. Mm-hmm. And that is certainly ubiquitous, I would say, and not exclusive to entertainment in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. I know, certainly medicine, law, tech, I can only imagine, and, other corporations, sort of are built on that toxic foundation. But certainly for a lot of the women that I know, and I'll speak for myself as well, I have experienced, extreme, nothing physical, but extreme inappropriateness with regard to comments about my appearance, comments about my dating life, comments about my eating habits, like it's my choices, like things that are nobody. I have not given you permission to comment, so you should not feel at all a place of that you have any right to do so. And that I'm certainly not alone in. And that I think is also ubiquitous and more prevalent in that people just, there's this assumption that you can be super inappropriate and casual, and have no boundary with the people that certainly work below you and the people you work around. And I should say, like, I try to be super conscious and super respectful. Certainly, at Netflix, we don't have offices. It's all creative space. So you just never know who's listening. Even if you're talking about something as harmful or as harmless, or I think it's harmless, as like when you say like, oh my God, or you're talking about religion, or you're talking about, you just never know who's listening, and who might be sensitive, to what you're talking about. But, the abuse of power and certainly the God complex that I think Harvey and so many men that have since, been, brought to their truth, with their behavior, it's sick. But honestly, they were on a pedestal of our making. And, I hope that Harvey will never have his another moment in the sun. But, I look at people like Mel Gibson, who has been, embraced back into the limelight, and he's getting jobs, and he's, having a great time, and, not what, first of all, I have my own personal, beliefs about how his anti-Semitic tendencies, but his ranting at a female police officer was what, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, and like someone that has that so quick at their, at the ready, I don't think that somebody like that can really change their belief system.
Without there being some big transformation.
Yeah. And, I don't know him personally at all. Like, so, perhaps he has, but I worry, and I think we are the same society that elected our president. And, unfortunately for those of us that live in, on the coast, I think, California is a Democratic state. I am not I'm not in imminent fear of my reproductive rights being, called into legislation. But I didn't think that Alabama or Georgia would do that either in my lifetime. So I could go on. It's a hard thing to wrap my brain around, because this building of these gods and this sort of celebration of this persona, and the like strange tendency to be secretive about it, and how everyone's saying, well, we all knew. So how
everyone's guilty?
Where did that show up? Outside of my knowing that he screamed at his assistant and throwed phones and but I didn't know that he was a sexual miscreant.
A drama queen is different than, to your point, a sexual miscreant, because it's two different levels of abuse.
Yeah. But at the same time, all of that behavior has been called into question. And I think, you often hear in the context of the conversation of Me Too, and the reason I said, and I wanted to ask you if the three men in the instances that you were advocated for, do they know that you feel so grateful to them? Because amazing, because it's important for men like that to know that we see you, we love you, continue, please.
Yeah, I feel really lucky. Most of my life, I'd say I've had more male friends than female. And I don't know if it was my interest, the industry I was in, but I've always been really lucky to have amazing male friends. And one was excessive and the other two weren't. Right. And it was one of those weird situations where like all of us looked at each other, because it was occurring around a table when it started, like an after work dinner. And everyone looked at me like, wait, what?
Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Like, what did they just say?
Yeah.
And like we were so caught off guard, and like everyone's kind of talking, laughing, having fun, that we were like, maybe were we just hallucinating? Okay. And like you just kind of keep on going, and it happened again. And it got to the point where it was somebody who was in a position of power.
Sure. That
didn't work for our company. And it was a delicate balance of we have like
But you were in business, quote unquote, with this person. So you didn't want to.
It's a business
put
dinner.
That at risk.
We're trying to close this deal. Like, what do we do?
Yep.
And everyone, I'm capable of taking care of myself as well, right? So like I saw it happen. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to get up. I'm going to switch seats. I'm going to move around. I'm just going to like remove myself as best I can. Like,
right. Which is what, therapy and sometimes that's the best, like that's what we're told to do is like remove yourself from the dramatic situation. And I would say maybe 7 times out of 10, that is the right thing to do because there's only so many times you can butt your head up against the wall for you to be like, I'm not going to get anywhere. This isn't worth my energy. But those 3 out of 10 times, you need to be like, no.
Yeah. And it escalated. Like I figured if I just move seats and I'm not in access of having this conversation, like it'll be okay. And then it kept like happening. And it was like done in a way that was like, oh, it's just a joke, no big deal.
No.
And the guys around me were like, no, like it's not okay. And he'd stopped for a while and he was also really drunk, this guy.
Of course.
And we went out to another place later and he was getting more aggressive and the guys like just like pulled him aside and they were like, I first said this is not happening. And then they came over and they're like, you're going home. Is that a line? And they all stepped in. It was like, I never felt I was at risk.
Yeah.
I just thought.
Did you ever get an apology?
No.
Yeah.
And I never expected one.
No. But I mean, it always, it's a nice to have. It's not a need to have.
It would change.
In those instances.
Had I gotten an apology, it would have changed how I view him today.
Yeah, of course.
Because I do understand that people don't always know what they're creating. And I do understand that people's perspectives are different.
Yes.
And drinking is like never is a place of reality.
No.
Right? So next day sober, if you want to apologize and I see you again and this doesn't happen again, fine. I'll chalk it up to that was a drunk bad day for you.
Sure.
It's okay. Like I have other things to worry about.
Yeah.
And I forget it even happened until people are like, "This ever happened to you?" I have to like go into the file cabinet of like what's happened.
Totally. But I think that's something that we tell ourselves because so much happens to us also. Like we are desensitized to it in a way because every day there's a comment. And every day there's a glance, and every day there's a brush of the shoulder, and every day there's a, undercutting of some kind that when things really happen, we're like, well, it wasn't that bad. But then you're like, wait, that was
they all add up.
That was kind of bad.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts
100%,
after a while.
100%. And it's, I just think we have to be mindful of that because that did happen and it's not okay.
Yeah, and I got that, and thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm proud of the fact that one of the biggest issues I've dealt with as a woman in business is just the being interrupted, and I'm proud that I've had other people, male and female, be like, "I'm really glad that you handled that meeting," and I'm like, "Thanks."
Yeah,
because like it's great. It's just not like that's the most annoying part, and it's not. This happens. It is not a male gender issue. The interrupting thing is not. It's whoever is the biggest asshole in the room. Like, that's all it is. Yep. It doesn't matter what gender you are.
Nope.
Sometimes it happens because you're so excited and you're getting caught up. I'm not mad about those situations. No. I'm mad about the ones that are
deliberate.
Yeah, deliberate. Like, ignore that person. It's so frustrating. And there's a guy I worked with who was notorious for this. And it was everybody. Everybody. I'm like, how do you, like... At
least he was an equal opportunist interrupter.
Definitely an equal opportunist, yeah.
To anybody, I should say. But, like, I've a few times in my life, gotten screamed at by men who are, by any man, because my dad and my brother don't scream at me, but, that don't know me, whether it's in the parking lot, or, because I took a space, God forbid, or, At nightclubs, I'm sure someone has screamed at me sometimes, and my instinct is like, do you feel good? Mm-hmm. Screaming at a woman like that? Is that who you want to be? And the second you like hold a mirror up to someone, they're like, I don't know, whatever. Yeah. But like, if you meet them with anger, then it's just like fire on gas. But
And that's another thing I feel is genderless in its approach. Like, I never understand why anyone feels the need, like, that their day is going to get better by right, like,
or being angry.
I don't get it.
You know, I have to have sympathy that not everybody has, you know, a deep love affair with yoga and like
Humanity.
body work, right? That I do. And I feel so grateful. And, you know, when and if I ever, you know, am president or queen of the world or whatever, and I have an ability to legislate education reform, teaching meditation and yoga.
Yeah.
Just like you teach, you know, physical education, because arming anybody, but children especially from a young age, if you ingrain it in that all you need to do is just take a deep breath. Just pause, remove yourself if you need to. That is your tool. That is just as effective as your fist is a deep breath. And, you know, contextualizing it with problem solving for children, I think is so, and men who are the same, you know, is so important. And human beings, like, just all you need to do sometimes is take a deep breath, step away.
Yeah.
Collect yourself. Don't react. Observe. And, you know, that's like one of the many things I would do if I was queen of the world.
Well, and it's working. Like, the places that...
I know. It's amazing. The statistics speak for themselves. And it's like, you know, and it goes right into the conversation about, you know, mental health in this country. It's like, you know, we as women go to the gynecologist once a year, just to make sure everything's good. Why is it still so, you know, frowned upon or has such a negative stigma to go to a therapist? Just to talk about yourself. You're getting a brain checkup.
Yeah.
And a heart checkup.
Well, I don't know if you've read the book Emotional Intelligence.
I have it.
Yeah.
I have it, but it's one of those books I've been staring at, and I just hope that the whole contents will osmosize into my brain.
It's quite good.
Yeah.
But it's emotional intelligence, meditation, your personal finances, and knowing how to create something from nothing, to me, are probably like the top things we are not teaching in school.
Yep.
And like, I get confused sometimes.
Personal finances, that's such a good point.
It's one of my like biggest passions, but like, there are areas that I cannot wait to get involved in and tackle, and education reform is one of them. So we can tag team that. I'm happy to do that.
Woo!
I grew up going to all public schools, and then I went to a private university for college and grad school, and it was only private because it, you know, cost more money, right? It wasn't, but there's so many, having gone to like really small schools, really big schools, there's so many things that we are leaving off the table in preparing people to be
life.
Humans, that I don't understand how, like, what do we as a nation want to be
producing? What kind of person? What kind of American? What do we want Americans to look like? How do we want them to behave? How do we want them to, you know, the choices we want them to make? The choices we want afforded to them. It's, I mean, yeah, I'm learning Latin in 7th grade was cool, but like, do I remember any of it? Would I have loved to, you know, learn what, and I still don't really understand health insurance.
Yeah.
My dad has had to explain to me, because he's an attorney, but he handles bankruptcy, Chapter 11. So he's always been super, you know, instructive, sometimes more forcibly than I would like, about money. And, you know, I didn't have a proper credit card until I was 25, because my whole life it was, you do not spend money you do not have.
Yep.
And then I went to go get an apartment, and they were like, your credit score is 900. Like, that, it's weird. It's fishy. Are you a Russian, like, robot?
Yes, I am. You're welcome.
I was like, what? So they insisted I open a credit card, and I basically bought all my furniture for that apartment and opened a line of credit because I never had one before. And, you know, it's things like that. And now I'm like, credit cards, woo! Yeah. It's great. But, you know, it's things like that that like should be mass taught.
Yeah.
And or what a 401k is and why it's important. And why you make, check the boxes that you do and what they mean and what, the trickle down.
We're not good at teaching our own citizens how to fill out any forms that come out of any government office, which is crazy.
No.
And I think too, like we don't talk enough publicly about how the values that our current culture tells people actually matter to us. Like living in Europe was one of my greatest experiences. And what I really took away from it was because everyone got the same amount of vacation time or personal time, regardless if they were a CEO or picking up trash.
Yes.
It made a statement that your personal time matters.
Yes.
And when people think that their personal time matters, their view of themselves changes.
100%.
If we say everyone should have access to healthcare, it means that your health matters to us.
Yes.
And it's not about insurance. It's about the healthcare. Like they're two different things.
Yes.
Like, I don't know why we keep trying to go in a circle about providing insurance. Like, we don't need insurance if we have the right healthcare. It makes me crazy.
It's a crazy trickle down cycle of these, and it's never more evident by the men that passed the heartbeat bill in Alabama and in Georgia, or the abortion ban. They're all white men who've never had a period in their life, don't know what it is to have a uterus and ovaries and fallopian tubes, don't know what it is to be pregnant, don't know what it is to be assaulted. I agree with you that, and I've spent enough time overseas, as well, that you just feel it's in the air. It's infectious of, you can get to it tomorrow. You don't have to work yourself into an ulcer, or you don't have to work yourself through the night that you miss dinner with your family. And it's, some would say it's a sign of weakness that you don't work, 24/7, and that you put your phone down and that you have boundaries. The vacation thing is again something I'm so grateful to Netflix. We have, an unlimited vacation policy offered to everyone, to your point of assistant to CEO. And, it's under the, assumption that you don't abuse it. It's not like, oh, bye, I'm going to take 12 months off. But if you've been there and, for any given time and you feel that that's what you need and you talk to your manager about it and you work through it, maybe that's what you need. And, those resources and those conversations are available. And certainly, for me, it being in a creative field, I need to seek otherness. Yeah. I need to go places and see things and eat things and talk to people that are different than my day-to-day, because I say all the time, like, I never knew what the color green really was supposed to look like until I went to Bali. And I never knew what true blue looked like until I went to the Amalfi Coast in Italy. And now I know what that is. And it's, it makes my heart skip just thinking about those memories. And I'm so grateful to live a life that affords me the ability to go to those places. Because I know a lot of other people living in this country will never get to see it because they'll never get time off. Never get time off, never be able to save money, never be educated enough to save the money in a way that will allow them to go places because they don't have the tools. How do I put money in a savings account? How do I open a savings account? How much money should I go into it? To your point of arming people with actual functional ability to live. It's, well, they say that, looking at our government, whether it's state or federal, they say like where your money is, so is your heart. And if we look at how the budgets are broken out, I don't think most Americans would agree that
like how we're spending all of our hard-earned money is in the places that we would want to put it.
Yeah.
Because I think that when you talk to people, no matter where they are on in their political identities, at the end of the day, we actually all care about the same things.
Yes.
We want to be able to take care of our kids. We want to be able to take care of our parents.
Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. That's what it is to be American.
Yes.
And that's what we forget in this mishigas of corporation and corruption and financial institution and, bill writing and legislation and checks and balances. It's just like strip all that away and life, liberty, pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Like
you were talking about having yoga and meditation in schools. Like the stress levels of people who don't know if they can eat or go to the doctor or if they'll have money to retire or if they can put their kids in daycare or take care of their parents when they can no longer take care of themselves. It's a different level of stress than we actually need to feel as such an advanced country.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing that we aren't there's so many easy, cost-effective structures that can just take the stress level down and then imagine what could happen.
I know.
And it makes me laugh when they're like, Germany and Canada, they don't know what they're doing. And I'm like,
pretty sure they do.
yeah. Or even like in the U.S. saying that about California. Like what,
leave us alone.
fifth largest economy in the world? It's like, I don't remember the exact number, but I think it's something crazy like $12 million in excess we have right now because of legalizing marijuana. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like I'm happy to legalize whatever we want to if it means that we have money to put in places that really we care about.
100%.
Because again, like you can do whatever you want. Yeah. Like I'm not your mom.
Yeah. Because people think, legalizing makes it a free-for-all, but legalizing it means it can be taxed, which means, to your point, money back into the government and can be subsidized and deputized in ways that we want it to be because that's what it is to be in a democracy. It's just so frustrating.
It is.
Yeah.
I would love to get back to you and what you're up to.
Yes.
So you work a high-powered job. There's definitely stress.
Yes.
There's always deadlines and pressures.
Always.
What are you putting in place so that you can show up your best as often as possible? Because I know every day is like not reality.
Oh my gosh. Number one, my dog. Mm-hmm. Getting a dog. I have a French bulldog named Butter, and she is everything. You can link a picture to in the show notes, but she is just the most delicious.
Oh, she is.
Yeah.
Hi, Butter.
My little sweet girl. It took me a long time. I've been thinking about getting a dog forever. And, my therapist even told me that it would be a great boundary setter, even, in addition to therapy, which everybody should go to therapy. It's the best thing ever. And, but it didn't feel like the right time. I was renting an apartment, big for one person, but small. I was working those crazy hours. And, it wasn't until this past summer that I was like, okay, I'm 31. I'm gonna do it. I bought my condo last year, and it's dog friendly. I have much more space now. I have a balcony. It's it's the pieces are coming together. And the great thing about Netflix is they encourage. Because again, I don't have an office, so it's not like someone's walking by my office being like, well, she's not here. They encourage us to exercise freedom and responsibility. And part of that is, if I don't have any meetings until noon, I'm on email more or less within the first 20 minutes of my waking up in the morning, which is early, but I don't necessarily need to be physically in the office. I can get my work done no matter where I am. And the genesis of that is that we are a global company and not everybody is in the same office anyway.
Or time zone.
Or time zone. Yes. That's, one of the greatest both assets and challenges for a global company is that you have so many different perspectives and, informed decision makers, from all different walks of life, both, physically, their location and just their background and their culture. But, working with people in Japan and in, Italy at the same time it can sometimes be challenging no matter who you are and where you are.
Yep.
So I had been at Netflix for over 2 years, I guess, in September. And, I don't intend on going anywhere anytime soon. I'm very happy there. And, I was sort of taking stock of my schedule and I also really wanted to slow down. I've never been like much of a huge partier of going out a lot. But I was definitely like traveling a lot, for work, which again is a gift and incredible that I, can go and see the world, via my job. But, I was going out to dinners a lot and drinking a lot of wine. And I just, and I was sleeping in and I felt like I was just, my therapist gave me this phrase and sometimes it resonates and sometimes it doesn't, but I felt like I was being lived, not living. Like I felt like a passive passenger. And, I talked to my sister-in-law, who is also a huge dog lover, and she helped me. She's been pro my getting a dog for the longest time. My parents were less enthused about the idea just because of my schedule, and they just were worried that, the dog would be home alone a lot, or I think most selfishly they were just worried that I would be like, oh, it's too overwhelming, you take the dog. Which, they're entitled to feel that way. And my sister-in-law helped me find this woman that had, had French bulldogs in the Valley, also from Encino, 5 minutes from where I grew up, which is hilarious. And I went and met Butter, who was born Bella, which is hilarious. And I met her. She was 6 weeks old, and I put her, right on my chest, and I just said, I looked at her and I said, "Butter, is that you?" Because I knew I wanted to name my dog Butter. And I said, "Are you my daughter? Are you Butter? Is that you?" And she licked my nose, and I said, "Okay, where do I sign? What do I do?" So I took her home a week later, and it's been the greatest, 7 months. I still have traveled for work and, squeezed in some time for myself. But if, I go anywhere that is, dog friendly, she comes with me. And, we've gone on a bunch of road trips. She's been to Ojai, she's been to Palm Springs, she's been to like she goes everywhere. And it just, nothing gets you out of your own head like being responsible for something else, another living thing. And, the rituals that we have every day and her schedule, and just like, I wake up and the first thing I think about is feeding her and, and making sure she's taken care of and she goes to the bathroom. And so it's a nice, because I did feel very, selfish, but not in a bad way. Yeah. I felt very just self-centered for a while, and that it was a good time to do that, where I just was very concerned with my own happiness, my own well-being, my own choices, my own habits. And just before I got her, that was when I picked up I've read A Return to Love several times. I've read The Universe Has Your Back several times. I was also reading How to Be a Badass, which is another great book. And as much as I was loving, and I was listening to a bunch of podcasts, and I was almost being too hard on myself to better myself. Yeah. It became just noise. And I was feeling a little just overwhelmed, and it was almost crippling, because I felt like I was listening to so many different prescriptions of, this is how you achieve greatness, and this is how you get over your attachment to emotional eating, and this is how you get past your personal roadblocks and all these things. And I just was like, I want this to stop. Yes. And whatever is supposed to have, because I've read all those things and I've listened to all the things, and whatever sticks will stick. And getting butter just helped just simplify and add some quiet. And it was, it has been and continues to be just the greatest. And I'm sure all of my friends like adore her, but are also like, I'm sure frustrated with me because more often than not on a weekend night, I just kind of want to stay home and hang out with her. I'm like, you can come over. We can go somewhere dog friendly. So, and it's okay. And all of my good girlfriends are either totally on board and supportive, or, they understand. Mm-hmm. And it's just right now, and certainly my looking after her and becoming a dog mom, if everything in my life I'm approaching from, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
Yep.
And that goes across the board. That goes work, that goes relationships, that goes dating, that goes nutritional choices, that goes family obligations, dinners, exercise, the whole thing.
It's important that we have to set these, it's not a parameter. Why aren't we going for the hell yes in everything?
Yep.
Like, why are we wasting our time doing something else?
Yeah.
Sure, there are moments of obligation, but otherwise, I want my life to be a hell yes.
Yeah. And even, it's even about just approaching the, quote unquote obligations that we have from a different mindset. Mm-hmm. And empowering yourself more. I more often than not, gladly will participate in said obligations, but it's empowering yourself with the ability to say no if you want. And sometimes you do, and you know what? The world turns. Boundaries are important, and certainly, back to your original question of like what I do to like sort of keep everything in somewhat of a sense of balance, which, the tipping scale is ever tipping.
It's right on the edge.
Always. And that's a constant, balance is something that I think is, and I've learned, and I've come to learn this over the last few years because it's been such a goal of mine of like balance, balance is key. You have to get balance, everything has to be towards balance. And it's just, it's this sort of, it's a fleeting idea. Because I can be like, I feel perfectly imbalanced in this moment. I feel energized and inspired, but something could happen in the next hour that tips it off. But I know I still need to be in balance in my body and in my soul and in my power. I don't know what I would think of that balance looked like when I would say like, oh, I'm seeking balance, but it's just every day it changes.
We think it's more organized.
Yeah. I think we think it's more measurable. Mm-hmm. Where we can say like, oh, 8 hours of work and 8 hours of sleep. Like, is that balance? No, because then I'm missing out on other things.
And that's why I love that you said you read all this, you listened to it, and you were like, hold on, I'm just going to do what I want.
Yeah. Because it felt just too overwhelming. And I love all of those things I mentioned, and I love all those women, and I love all of what they preach, but it just, the way that I was ingesting all of it, and the rate at which I was ingesting all of it, I was also just, again, admittedly, just hoping for not a quick fix, but like a clear, sign from above or solution to be like, this is how you fix everything. Not that anything is broken, but this is how everything, will unfold if you, study this hard and you do this and you do this and you do this equals, career of your dreams, family of your dreams, health of your dreams, all the things. And it's like, no, it's not that easy, and it's not that linear.
Well, I think too that we put so much pressure on ourselves, especially as women, especially with having visibility to people's lives or alleged lives.
Yes.
As to what they're doing.
Social media.
And it's like, we put these expectations on ourselves that are usually ridiculous.
Yes.
And And when you step back, I think that to me, the balance is taking the time out to step back and say, am I doing things that get me excited? Or am I just doing things just like you did?
Yeah.
Am I being lived or living?
Yep.
And as long as you check back in, like, and get rid of the stuff you don't think you need. Like, I think that's one of the biggest struggles people have. And it shows up when I'm coaching people and they're like, all the shoulds versus the wants.
Yeah. And it's all from fear.
It's all from fear and often incorrect classification of shoulds and wants.
Yes.
Like, and because from such an early age, we adopt other people's expectations or thoughts or views.
Yep.
We don't even realize that they're not ours until we like, oh, hold on, wait, what do I think?
Yeah.
And we don't have an answer.
Yeah.
And then you get scared and you're like, oh shit, I don't have an answer. And you're like, no, it's actually fine. You can go and find it.
Yeah. You don't have to, like, how we are never encouraged to say, I don't know. Mm-hmm. In work, in life, you're never, you're always, labeled like, oh, well, she's a dummy. Or like, oh, well,
Yep.
Maybe she's not the one. If you just say, I don't know. I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
I would love to talk about it, but I don't know. Or, some of the greatest CEOs and SHEOs that I have read books about and autobiographies and had the pleasure of meeting, they say it's like the one of the greatest pieces of advice consistently that I hear from them that they were given is admit when you don't know and hire the best person who knows.
Yeah.
And talk to that and seek out that knowledge. Know what you don't know. And know that you aren't supposed to know everything.
No.
And you're not supposed to be the master of the universe and all of knowledge. But I think certainly as women, we are conditioned from an early age, to your point, of behaving a certain way and saying yes to everything and, stretching ourselves thin because that's what we think, a working women with bills and friends and a life and a family. That's what we think success looks like of a full plate. And sometimes the full plate is what kills you. And, and sometimes, and the thing, what I said about fear of like the shoulds and the wants, it's, I want to simplify, but I should go to dinner with this person that I actually don't like. You get trapped in this way of, making the assumption that if you do start living your life from a place of hell yes.
Yeah.
Organically and sometimes necessarily, things in your life will eliminate themselves. And that's friendships, that's habits, that's rituals, that's, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And it's sometimes in terms of the friendships and relationships, it's the fear of the loss and the judgment and, the confrontation sometimes of what living from a place of hell yes or just doing what makes you happy and what makes you happy, what that will mean. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're ready for it and sometimes you're not. And that's where the shoulds come in of I really don't want to go to dinner or I really don't want to hang out with whatever, with a friend, with a family member, but I should. Mm-hmm. And it's, it's carrying that, gives us stress. And sometimes you just got to say, hell no.
Yeah. And then like, I love, there's a great picture I saw where it's like the most powerful words are no, thank you.
Oh, the best.
And it gives you freedom because to me, no, thank you says you get to stand up for yourself.
Yes.
And be
it's
polite.
Also gracious. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's very similar. It's a sort of a harsher, a horse of a different color, but no is a complete sentence. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's all. You don't owe anybody anything. Whether, yeah, it's...
I think a lot of people also get cut up because they They know what they don't want, but they don't know what they do want.
Totally.
And I think that as you go through life,
present company included, I would say.
yeah, like
I'm still figuring it out.
and you're always going to be like, it changes. Like it's just a scale, and where you're on all the different scales of the world, like they're going to move based on what you're up to, what matters right now, your current experiences. And I think we get so tied up in, I don't know what I want, so I should stay in the should zone. And it's like, no, like just pick one. What is one thing you know that is something you're committed to?
Yes.
Cool. How can that show up in your life? How is it not showing up? And then if you don't have an answer for another area of your life, like go explore it.
Right.
Go ask people.
Yes.
Go meet new people. Go try new things.
Yes.
Go someplace new. Because you can't figure out who you are as a person in one moment. So we ask everyone on the Powerful Ladies podcast where you put yourself on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being normal, average human, 10 being the most powerful lady possible. Where do you feel you are today, and where do you put yourself on average?
Well, right now, after this conversation, I'm feeling like an 8.
Ooh.
Yeah. I love meeting and conversing with women like you. And I think it's just energizing is the only way really to put it, and the all-encompassing, term I use. And it's how I feel after every soapbox. And it's so energizing and empowering. And it's gives me so much hope for our future and for just the days to come.
Yeah.
And so I thank you. And then I would say I'm nearly there on average.
Yeah.
Because of my relationship with, like I said, I've talked about them a lot, but my parents have, my dad, God love him, still calls me princess. And, he has been telling me that I was going to be the first female president since I, can remember. Even though I'm zero politically inclined, but it's okay. Maybe one day. And my mom is just my biggest cheerleader. And, talking to her every day is like, a shot to the heart with adrenaline and pride and love. And, I between Soapbox, my network at work, both male and female, my group of girlfriends, I am constantly empowered and supported and reminded of my power and my impact. And, I have made it very clear to all those close to me that my love language is words of affirmation. So that's why. But, it's a very sort of fluid, organic sensation that I feel, and just what I feel from my friends and from my community is a constant sense of gratitude and empowerment. So I would say about an 8 on average too.
I like it.
Yeah. And I, stay tuned. I got stuff. Maybe one day soon it'll be a 10. I hope.
We, I think too, looking at, you're still like so young, right? And accomplished and yes. And, to create something that is bringing hundreds of women together on a regular basis, somebody who wants to follow in your footsteps, oh God, how would you tell them to start? What would you tell them as your, nugget of advice?
Oh, man. Ask the question. Always ask the question. Don't assume either you know the answer or that you shouldn't ask the question. Whether it's, the next time, can I try it? Or can I do it? Or how did you come to the decision you made? Never assume that either whether it's your boss, your colleague, isn't willing to answer the question. So always ask the question. And always also, when you don't know something, it's okay to say you don't know. It's okay to say, I'm not the best resource, but here are 7 people who may know the answer. Because I think and I, certainly prior to Netflix, I felt this way, certainly in my work life, saying I don't know, or I don't have the answer. That was never, I would lie often of like, when is this coming in, or when is this going to be ready, or what did so-and-so say about so-and-so trailer version. And I didn't have an answer. I'd be like, in a few hours or in a few days. And then I'd have to like back out of my lie and frequently, freak out and send frantic emails to be like, this needs to be ready in an hour because I said so. And I'm so sorry. So just say you don't know, or you don't have it, or it's okay. And then, this is sort of a summation of these two, but the what I said about, CEOs, one of the best piece of advice that they were given is when you're not a master in something, find the master and learn from them, or hire them to do the job that you can't do.
Yep.
I am never going to be an attorney. I am never going to be a CPA. I am never going to be a heart surgeon. So it's all about, and that's okay. I don't need to be, or should I be, or want to be. And, it's freeing myself from the expectation of that, and sort of grounding it in Soapbox, the fact that you offered to help us with, filing for nonprofit status. Like, I can't tell you what a relief that is, because we've been trying to figure it out sort of in this echo chamber, and none of us know, and we haven't been practicing what we preach. So you are the master, and I bow to you. So, and then, the last nugget is, seek community. If this person following in my footsteps is a man, find a mentor, or find, a community, whether it's at work or in your personal life, that is aligned with your personal values and what's in your heart. And because I think that this world we live in can be, and certainly with social media and everything, can be very isolating, and stress can be, a huge proponent of isolation. And so I would just seek community. Those are my,
I love it.
Yeah. Ask the question, say you don't know, and hire well and seek community. Those are my nuggets of advice.
Those are good ones.
Yeah.
Well, it has been such a pleasure.
I know, this was so fun. I was really nervous.
No, you did great. But it's so nice to have you. Thank you for being a guest to me and Powerful Ladies.
Hell yes.
Shout out to Jason for connecting us.
Oh my God, Jason, we love you.
And I'm really excited to see what Soapbox and Powerful Ladies and you and I can kind of create and make happen as we go forward.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
So exciting.
Yay.
Yay, thank you.
Meeting women who are committed to making a difference for other women is always exciting. Not only to spend time with women on a parallel path to myself, but to hear how their story brought them to this passion. Jen is no exception. Her passion for the issues she cares about, for cute butter, for her girlfriends, and the women of Soapbox is undeniable and contagious. Since we taped this episode, the Soapbox community has grown to 1,000 women. We highly recommend you attend the next Soapbox event on August 28th. Visit their website, soapboxla.com, to learn more. To learn more about Soapbox and to connect with and support with Jen, you can follow her on Instagram at Jen S. Weg, follow her on Twitter, Jen Weg, email her jennifer.weg@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the work that we're doing here at Powerful Ladies, there's a couple of ways you can do that. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Leave a review on any of these platforms. Share the show with all the powerful ladies and gentlemen in your life. Join our Patreon account. Check out the website, thepowerfulladies.com, to hear more inspiring stories, get practical tools to be your most powerful, get 15% off your first order in the Powerful Ladies shop, or donate to the Powerful Ladies One Day of Giving campaign. And of course, follow us on Instagram at Powerful Ladies. For show notes And to get the links to the books, podcasts, and people we talk about, go to thepowerfulladies.com. I'd like to thank our producer, composer, and audio engineer, Jordan Duffy. She's one of the first female audio engineers in the podcasting world, if not the first. And she also happens to be the best. We're very lucky to have her. She's a powerful lady in her own right. In addition to taking over the podcasting world, she's a singer-songwriter working on her next album, and she's one of my sisters. So it's amazing to be creating this with her, and I'm so thankful that she finds time in her crazy busy schedule to make this happen. It's a testament to her belief in what we're creating through Powerful Ladies, and I'm honored that she shares my vision. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. I can't wait for you to hear it. Until then, I hope you're taking on being powerful in your life. Go be awesome and up to something you love. This episode is brought to you by audible.com. I love reading. I love books. To me, it is the fastest way to learn whatever you want to learn in the whole world, whether it's about people, places, things, or how to. And of course, Powerful Ladies is all about empowering you guys to have the skills and information you need to live your best life. One of the fastest ways you can do that is by having an Audible subscription. You can listen to any book pretty much in the entire world, anywhere you want on the go, in your car, in traffic, when you're working out at the gym, even, on your smart speaker when you're cooking dinner at home. It's such an amazing tool to use. Through Powerful Ladies, you guys get a super bonus where you can get 2 free audiobooks to start. And then after 30 days, you get 1 book each month for $14.95. Plus, you get 30% off the price of any additional audiobook purchases. You can also find all the books we recommend on the Powerful Ladies resources, where we link both the hard copy book and the Audible book, so you can choose whichever one suits your way of reading. Go to Powerful Ladies today and click on the Audible banner, and you can get this amazing deal right now.